Hi, I'm David Wilkinson, the founder of the Fear Breakthrough course, and I lecture in universities around the world, including my home university, the University of Oxford. I'm also the director of the Oxford Institute of Emotion Development. In this short video, I want to have a look at something that is vital if you're going to deal with your nerves, fears, or anxieties. You are what you think. This is about you and how you see yourself. Very early on in my academic career as a psychologist, I realised that people label themselves and then start to live up to those labels. When I was a research student, we carried out an experiment where we asked people to complete a personality indicator instrument. Now, there are loads of these personality indicators available today, and we used the most famous and widely used of these at the time. Anyway, we got our subjects to complete the instrument, and then we showed them what their profile was. The only thing was that half of the subjects didn't get their own profile. We gave them somebody else's results instead, and we didn't tell them. We then put everyone through the instrument again 3 months later. Now, the people that we'd given the real scores to and who'd got their own profiles back 3 months earlier had deepened their results, by which what I mean is they'd become more like the profile they'd initially got and been able to read. Now, the thing that really fascinated and surprised me, and I'll remember to my dying day, is that the people who we'd given somebody else's profile to, the ones who'd got the wrong profiles back initially 3 months earlier, in this case had significantly different results. Now their personality indicators resembled the wrong profiles we'd given them. Now, what I learned from this experiment was that if we believe we are like something, we become more like what we believe. So if you're telling yourself you're just a nervous or anxious person, chances are you're going to stay that way. From this moment on, you really need to change that identity. Now, you probably won't be able to do this overnight, but you've got to shift the thinking. And the first stage of this is to catch yourself every time that you have this kind of thought. And just gently say to yourself, no, I'm going to be a confident person soon. Now, not only do we take on what we think we are in any situation, for example, mothers and fathers often become more mother and father-like as time goes on when they have children, and they start to fulfill the role that previously they probably wouldn't have even identified with. Now, this form of self-fulfilling prophecy is very powerful and profound for people who see themselves as a worrier or an anxious person. Now, the more the individual thinks like that, the more the anxiety becomes part of who they are. The problem with this kind of thinking is that as we identify with something like this, we start to filter our own perceptions to prove to ourselves that we're right. Now, this is a known cognitive bias called confirmation bias. Now, confirmation bias is something we all do to some degree. And when we get an idea in our heads, we tend to start filtering what we see, hear and notice to confirm our beliefs. It's a bit like a detective, only seeing the incriminating evidence and ignoring any counter evidence. You, like many other people, have in the past probably got some idea that somebody was up to something, and pretty soon you started to see the evidence stacking up, only to find later that your suspicions were wrong. Now, this is a natural human bias. The trouble is, with something like assuming that you are just an anxious person, is that from the moment you form this opinion, your brain will go into overdrive to filter and find the evidence to support this conclusion. And this then holds the person in an anxious state. And the more you change this belief, the quicker you will loosen your fears and allow things to start to change. Now, what I want you to do for the next week is notice every time that you're not anxious. And you'll quickly realize that you're not an anxious person, that there are just some situations in which you become anxious. And those are two very different things, and they have a profound effect on you. So be very careful about what you think you are, because you will become how you think you are.